Hello there, and welcome to today's webcast, How Health and Human Services Agencies Are Navigating from Data to Action. I'm Patrick Moore, Senior Fellow with the Center for Digital Government, and I'm pleased to serve as the host for today's webcast. Thank you for joining us. I believe we're going to have a great session. Before we dive into the content, I wanted to share a few brief housekeeping notes. We will email a recording of this presentation to all registrants within 48 hours. Please use the recording for your reference or feel free to pass along to your colleagues. We've designed this webcast to be interactive, and you can participate in Q&A with us by submitting your questions using the Q&A box at the bottom left of the presentation panel. Send in your questions as they come up throughout the presentation, and we'll address as many of them as possible during the QA portion of the webinar. For those of you interested in downloading a copy of the slides, you can do so by clicking the Webinar Resources widget at the bottom of the console. Also, during today's webcast, you will be able to connect with your peers via LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. For those of you on Twitter, please use hashtag GovTechLive to share key takeaways, quotes, and learnings from today's webcast. You can see that hashtag at the bottom right of your slides. At the close of the webcast, we'll encourage you to complete a brief survey about the presentation. We'd love to hear what you think. If you're unable to stay with us for the entire webcast but would like to complete the survey, simply click the survey widget at the bottom of the screen to launch it. Otherwise, it will automatically pop up as soon as the webcast concludes. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up blockers. And if you're experiencing any media player issues or have any other technical problems, please visit our webcast help guide by clicking on the Help button at the bottom of the console. Now to introduce today's speakers. Dr. Suman Dey is Head of Government Healthcare Analytics for Infosys Public Services. He has extensive experience in the public healthcare sector and previously worked for the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the Indian Public Health Association. At Infosys, Dr. Suman leads the area of advanced data science and artificial intelligence-enabled population health, social determinants of health analytics, opioid management, care management, and value-based care. He's a frequent public speaker at various healthcare conferences, forums, and at major universities, including the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Dr. Suman is based in Hartford, Connecticut. He holds a medical degree from the University of Calcutta and master's degree in healthcare administration from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai, India. Jignesh Desai is a lead solutions architect at AWS. He's a cloud enthusiast with extensive experience in leading organizations' migration to the cloud. He's previously worked for Synchron Inc., helping multi-billion-dollar insurance practice transform its cloud business. At AWS, Jignesh leads partnerships with one of the largest global systems integrator and helps them deliver exceptional results through strategic thinking, strong problem-solving skills, and unique ability to understand market needs. He supports them with distinguishable solutions and through high level of collaboration in a global cross-functional team environment. He's a frequent speaker at various conferences and also a blog author. He is based in Northern Virginia. He holds a Master of Computer Application degree from the University of South Gujarat in Surat, India. Anthony Farina is a Senior Director of Global Partnerships at Couchbase, and his team is responsible for the strategy, development, and execution of go-to-market solutions with public cloud, technology ecosystem, and global system integrator partners. As a part of the broader channel and alliances team, his team works closely with partners and Couchbase regional field teams to help conceive, architect, and deliver differentiated solutions that enable extraordinary business outcomes for mutual customers. Prior to joining Couchbase in 2017, Anthony held similar roles with both large and emerging enterprise technology companies, and earlier in his career served as both an investment banker and management consultant for high-growth technology companies. Anthony graduated cum laude from Brown University and was a member of the football team. He's based in the Bay Area, where he resides with his wife and 2 children. Ryan Levy is parlaying his experience across 3 continents at the forefront of all things data. Ryan is responsible for Knowi's partner and sales strategies, execution, and operations. Known for his never-give-up attitude, Ryan leads with passion and partnering at all levels. His deep experience in enterprise software, analytics, and SaaS spans IoT, healthcare, cybersecurity, data, and retail. Prior to Knowi, Ryan operated as Vice President of Strategic Programs for Infosys, a leader in indoor intelligence focused on IoT and analytics. Before Infosys, Ryan built and delivered strategic and transformative solutions for NTT. Well, folks, we have a tremendous panel today. We look forward to getting into the discussion. Before we do that, we wanted to set the stage a little bit. I think most folks on this call can agree that the 2020-20 script has been written. Looking at the predictions that government technology had for this year, we can see that they're probably consistent with our own experiences and the things and the trends that we expected to happen in this current year. And while all of these are still important and will likely remain priorities for time to come, we also know that they've been upended in large part because of how we've had to respond to the COVID pandemic. Both in our personal lives and our professional lives, we've had to shift our focus to helping public health, to helping save lives, and to serving citizens in a different way than we were doing before the pandemic hit. The pandemic has shown us lots of good things. It's shown us lots of bad things. We've seen that CIOs have been able to speed up digital services efforts amid the recovery. We've seen that local governments are having to find new ways to work differently and to work remotely, and to do so as teams and in a way that's a little bit different than the way they used to work. We also know that the pandemic shortfalls are going to probably cause budget challenges, and we know that governments across all levels are already gearing up for those. We've seen how important it is to use data and how data can be used to affect decisions, both in our personal lives and in the lives of how leaders are managing through the crisis at all levels of government. Data is going to be one of the focus of today's conversation. And we know that going forward, it's going to be difficult to predict what's next. Like I've just mentioned, we know that we're going to be seeing budget cuts. We know that governments are going to have to respond to that in a way that still manages to keep services for citizens up and running on an ongoing basis. We hope that the lessons learned from the pandemic and how government responded are going to produce positive change. And we hope that we're going to be able to use the data that we've gleaned through this process to continue to inform our decision-making, again, at all levels of government. We know that a lot of predictions are going to be completely wrong. We know a lot of predictions are probably going to be dead spot on. But we do know through all of this that data is going to be at the key, at the center of how we make those decisions. And we hope that our decision makers are going to be able to use the right information to make the best decisions possible. And with this, we're going to get into our discussion today. So why don't we start by understanding how agencies, government agencies in particular, can put their data to work and the reasons why they might be struggling to do that today. Dr. Suman, why don't we start with you on this?
Hey, thanks, Patrick. Thank you for setting the stage. Well, before I go into answering that question, I would like to mention something that I keep thinking on. And to me, analytics is more than an art than we naturally think it as a science. Though we keep on referring that it is, analytics is nothing but data science into action. But to be honest, when I work on projects, any data analytics effort requires a human-centric approach and an exploratory mindset like that of an artist. And when I say that, I can easily imagine how an artist put their thoughts together. First, imagine what they want to paint, what sort of colors they have to organize in the palette that will suit the painting the most, and what sort of brushes will actually make up the shades that would express their imagination rightly in the painting. And this is exactly similar how any data analyst, any data scientist, any data explorer, any data hygienist may attempt a data analytics project like. They have to start with a hypothesis on the problem statement, identify the right data from the variable, as well as the sources that they have, and they will have to validate their hypothesis with those data sets. They have to curate the data well to make it appropriate to use and decide what sort of algorithms will rightly model the data set to get the desired analytics result. And if I get into my next slide, this is where I think agencies need to get all of these things right together. And then, as you said, they can easily uncover some of the hidden insights about their population and deliver the right interventions to the right people at the right time. Most importantly, what I feel, time is essence, and there is no time in today's healthcare in specific, and for the reason for government healthcare, to sit back and relax. Decision making needs to happen in minutes, And that's what this current pandemic has really proved. We got into many challenges due to the broken existing data infrastructure in the public health side, and we were unable to make any timely decision that could have mitigated this problem much more better than what has been done right now. Many attempts have been made to come out with the predictions to better manage the situation, but there are a good amount of hits and misses that we have experienced. And especially when I was digging into some of the existing data works and the predictive models and a lot of controversies that is going on around. So what it means is we just don't need to have only the understanding of the state of infection, how many people have been infected, how many have died, how many have recovered, what is the volume of testing. But to manage things well, agencies have to go further deep and understand more about every individual and how they are being impacted, so that an overall community level strategy can be well formulated to address the challenge comprehensively. And to better control the situation, hence a rich AI-based analytics capability are required for agencies to go to that next level, where they can identify the causal linkages between the comorbidities and the COVID-related death that is possible when you get to make a longitudinal person-centric view with information from the person's hidden risk profile that can lead to aggravation of certain underlying health conditions. And then, more importantly, you will be able to come to understand the next best actions that will be required to manage their condition more proactively. But if I think so, unfortunately, that is not being done today. There have been lots of issues in order to lay off the things from the ground and in order to take into the right level of analytics, which I call enhanced or expanded, or you can say as a deep analytics. Most of the time, they have a real challenge with respect to understanding what type of data they would need, where the data lies, where the data are stored in different formats and structures, and more importantly, whether the data is been accessible to each and every individual that they can use it in a meaningful way. And that's where the typical challenges about the data jam, the data prison, or even we say data silos. And obviously the question is definitely around the quality of the data that comes into action. So even if someone is able to get the right data, they spend an inordinate amount of manual effort and time in preparing, standardizing, sanitizing, and managing the data. They face additional challenges of working with today's legacy and disjointed tool sets. And then there is definitely the issue of the skill set availability. Data scientist skill set, as you might understand, and especially if they have to come with a strong healthcare background and domain knowledge, it's really short in the market. It's almost impossible for agencies to get the people skilled enough to do the heavy lifting required to turn their data into action in a timely manner. So, long story short, agencies need the right organizational and infrastructure lift to get their data into action and the analytics initiatives off the ground.
Dr. Suman, it's a great conversation. We all know that the data is there. We know that there are tools available to manipulate the data and analyze the data and turn it into actionable outcomes. But there are so many challenges, and none of these challenges by themselves are insurmountable. Together, there's a lot of them out there, though. So how do you see the agencies addressing the challenges they face and getting to a more robust data analytics capability?
Oh, that's a great question. And I would like to point you to one of the slides, which is very closer to me, that agencies actually need to establish the right data and analytics foundation. That's the base that you have to fix it. And then adopt an end-to-end automated AI platform that is much more driven by self-service and helps to put the data into action on a timely manner, while they can definitely address rest of the issues that we have discussed so far. And such solution will allow agencies to navigate confidently from across the data value chain, which I say starts from the data ingestion to the generation of the intelligence. So if I take it as some puzzles that I have to put together, The first piece of the platform or the puzzle is the ability to integrate multimodal data. Any type of data, any format of data, any structure of data, wherever it resides. And you need to get it as is without any additional upfront ETL scripting. That can save the effort as well as reduce the dependencies of any separate tool that would be required to do all this data ingestion and aggregation. For example, if I think about the current pandemic situation and how the agencies would try to tackle this, they need to have a lot of data in order to do the various level of population patient-centric analytics. They have to bring in data from the EMR systems, the lab results. They have to look into the patient prescription records, the patient demographics, some amount of their additional population histories, and so on and so forth. Now, getting all this data together as they lie in different structure and format is a real challenge, and that's where a platform like this can help you to take off that heavy lifting and help you to make things much more faster. The second piece is the ability to use the next generation automation in harmonizing all these data sets, following the industry best practices around data standardization, data quality, master data management, metadata management, data normalization, whatever you think to be the right things that you do in order to have a sanitized data. And all these things has to be done in a cohesive way that minimizes the redundant points and reduces manual intervention in the overall data management journey. This will help you to create an integrated, curated golden record of your population. And that will make sure that everybody in the organization has the same definition. That's important. They have the same understanding of what something in the data actually means for a particular constituent. For example, the data attributes that mean COVID is understood as coronavirus to a data analyst, to a data hygienist, to a data scientist, to a data steward. That's important so that you have the same experience that you can drive through the data if you interpret it properly. Now, this curated data, when further augmented with some social determinants of health markers and the other unconventional data that we have started generating from different type of sources, for example, IoT devices, we are now looking into app-based contract tracing systems and solutions, actually will help you to build richer profiles of the constituents, enabling agencies to understand aggregated to individualized risk with this epidemic. And the third piece is the ability to now bring in the power of automated machine learning, which is the advanced analytics, to generate the right predictive intelligence and action, and to use self-service enabled next generation BI tools to make it easier for people to consume this intelligence with an uniform experience for easy decision making. For example, if you want to understand what is the extent of the spread of the infection in the community, that's the descriptive analytics that you would like to do. If you want to do the diagnostic analytics, you want to identify the at-risk population. Getting into the next level, you want to do some more predictive to understand what is the virus reproducibility rate, what is my case fatality rate, how is my influence going to happen into my society with respect to the virus resurgence. And all these things can definitely possible when you have these pieces of puzzles being blended together. And this level of expanded intelligence will enable agencies now to deliver the right interventions, like procuring the PPEs and the ventilators and supply them based on the population at need, as well as having the right next best action in place for at-risk and vulnerable individuals to keep their underlying health condition from being aggravated by this highly contagious virus. And that may not be the list of it. When you have the information, it's more important for you to disseminate this information between different stakeholders, different cross agencies. And that's where a platform like this should have inbuilt APIs. And the data stored in a canonical model like FHIR, this platform can make cross-agency data sharing much more easier and seamless, so that every stakeholders, every decision makers, every public health policy makers would have access to the same level of intelligence so that they can make a uniform decision to attack this pandemic situation.
No, those are great starting points and ways to think about an approach to a more robust capability in this area. And it seems like what I'm hearing is that the first piece of the puzzle is really about the ability to effectively access, effectively process the different types of data. What's missing currently from agencies' existing system to do this? And then how then, once you identify what's missing, how then do they go to that next level? And Anthony, why don't we turn to you on this one?
Well, thanks, Patrick. That's right. As Dr. Suman mentioned, solving for this disjointed and disparate data is the key first challenge that we need to overcome. And in fact, in our experience, the success of digital transformation projects, which include data and analytics projects as well, depend on modernizing the data layer to better leverage the unstructured and semi-structured data that's out there from multiple sources to garner real-time insights. As much as 80% of HHS data is unstructured, and the overall volume of structured data is expected to grow by 55% annually. Not only are agencies unable to analyze this data, but they're having struggles in unlocking the data that's sitting already in their disparate legacy silos. Most agencies still use and rely on traditional relational databases, and in our recent survey that we did last fall, about 450 industry CIOs participated, and it was revealed that 72% of those respondents felt that relational systems were holding them back from achieving their success. And here's the problem. So legacy databases were designed and architected in an era optimized for disk utilization. They had rigid data models, and there was a lack of reliable high-speed network connectivity that preceded our current cloud-based era. And here's a simplified view of a current approach that's typical. You've got your current database and caching layer, including several other key capabilities like data replication for high availability. You've got a web service and an integration tier, and then you've got another component layer on top of that, which gets you to your user-facing application at the user, whether it's a client device, iPad, whatever the case may be. So these monolithic data systems evolve by introducing multiple layers of point solutions. This was intended to improve performance and make the data accessible and available. So you would add cache, you would add memory for low latency performance improvements, or you'd scale up or upgrade the hardware for better performance. You'd add replication for resilience and availability. You'd add ETL jobs to get data from one source to another for offline or batch processing, et cetera. Or you'd add custom data synchronization code for edge data. But these add-ons have resulted in increasing the complexity and the manual intervention required, and did not enable the databases to make use of the unstructured and semi-structured data, which is the part that's growing the most, without having to flatten and diminish the richness of that data in the first place. So using the same kind of framework here, an advanced NoSQL database is architected from the ground up to overcome these limitations, and is a key enabler to unlock data that's trapped in silos, and can be extended to consume these external data sources as well to really achieve a true 360 view or golden record of a user, as Dr. Suman had mentioned. So now, in this database tier, all the essential components required for a modern database can be simplified into a single data platform. So you're providing a memory first, not a memory only, but a memory first integrated cache, combined with the persistent document store and asynchronous replication is built in for HA. Not only for HA, but for optimal data placement. So the data is closest to the end user where it needs to be, and you can manage that. This approach makes it, this is a cloud native and elastic and scalable platform. So you scale it not only horizontally, but vertically as well. So you can add more nodes horizontally. You can add more disk or SSDs for storage. You can scale incremental CPUs and cores. You can scale memory as needed. And it also provides workload isolation. So what does that mean? It means that operational workloads that are powering these mission-critical apps for HHS agencies, those real-time workloads aren't adversely affected by any ad hoc analytic jobs that you're doing on the same platform. So what you have is an always-on and a self-healing and scalable architecture, and this provides significant operational savings through automation, and then a ton of cost savings by reducing a lot of redundant point solutions. But perhaps most importantly, a modern NoSQL database is schemaless. So it provides maximum flexibility to the application developers and the data scientists. So this means that agencies can use it for any type of data, from structured data sets like claims to unstructured data sets like case manager notes. Basically, CSV, video, social media, images, they're all queryable and searchable in a system like this. And as Dr. Suman had mentioned, there's a scarcity of data science and developer skills out there. So a database that can provide access to this complex unstructured data, but also leverage industry standards like SQL, like FHIR, is extremely powerful for HHS agencies. So with this approach, HHS agencies can now have a cloud-native data layer with no limits, and that unlocks the true potential of data to power their AI journey. Now, there's a simple tenet to guide a powerful solution like this one. More data and a simple algorithm will always deliver better insights and outcomes than a complex algorithm with a much, much smaller data set. As a NoSQL database, Couchbase doesn't develop the AI algorithms. Our partners do that, and you'll learn more about that on our discussion here. We just make the easiest data platform from which to consume AI logic and run operational workloads based on tuned AI models. So, Patrick, hopefully that's a good overview of why the data layer is so kind of important in getting these projects off to a good start.
No, absolutely, Anthony. And I think it's also starting to paint a picture of the possible, that we see what capabilities exist that can help agencies and how they rethink their data strategy and their use of the strategy. So let's think about what happens when you get access to all this data. How do you make the most of it, and how do you do it quickly? And I think, Dr. Suman, let's turn back to you on this one.
Hey, thanks, Patrick, again. And I think Anthony made something really solid in terms of understanding people, that how making this data layer and the data storage so important. And as I was mentioning earlier, that we have to bring in data today in terms of, be it of any format, any structure, any type. And that's where, the power of NoSQL technology comes into play, that how it can ease the entire data aggregation and make things much more easier to navigate further from there. So to your question, Patrick, I think this is where my second and the third puzzle pieces that I earlier mentioned comes into play. But one thing I have, definitely thought through it when I was mostly interacting with many of the clients, and I was looking into their analytics project and how things have been shaping up. Incorrect analytics techniques are not always the problem. The problem is more with the level of data literacy, the lack of constantly, having availability of sanitized data, and the acute shortage of right skill set, which becomes the real barrier and challenge to make things work at the agency level. A recent LinkedIn analysis reminds me that there is an unfilled demand for approximately 200,000 people with data scientist skills in the United States. Think about the number. So as a result, agencies are definitely struggling to leverage next generation data science technology more, and are still depending on the standard spreadsheet-driven modeling tool. And again, no offense to using a spreadsheet-driven modeling tool, but it's a time to get into the next level of transformation with the boon of data science that's happening today. So this is where an automated analytics platform which supports rapid AI model development and deployment, and completely driven through automation comes into picture. And they can scale this democratization of data science within organization and help you to accelerate the life cycle of an analytics project with fewer iterations and error. Once your golden record is ready, an automated AI platform can offer that intuitive navigation, right from your documentation on the hypothesis to choosing the data variables, data feature engineering, data wrangling, what type of algorithm would work best on the data set, what type of model validation technique you have to put into effect, the model training, retraining, ranking of the model performance, explainability of the predictions, as well as auto monitoring the model itself is a huge amount of work that can be used by this automated AI platform. And end of the day, it will enable any capable, skilled analyst within an organization to develop that citizen data scientist mindset that is required for this AI model development. And that will actually help to solve the crisis that we are facing today with respect to the right amount of skill set that is still not present in the organization. And in this time of COVID, such a platform can easily help agencies to build and analyze multiple complex epidemiological statistical equations that supports prediction of case incidents, case doubling rate, mortality and virus transmission rate, proactive identification of high-risk patients, you name it. There are a lot of different projections that you can make out of this. And complex data science project can be turned around in few days that eventually takes months to do it in traditional legacy tool. And this is the way you can enable this platform and help to disseminate information to understand and comprehend it better. And I think Ryan would be definitely excited to make some more good points to what I have already mentioned. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Thank you, Suman. And you know what? You're exactly right. One of the fundamental issues, as you mentioned, is that the agencies lack this concept of data democratization. HHS agencies struggle to consume, to prep, to blend, and even analyze this data from multiple data sources, and then to translate this into meaningful visualizations. Then they have to deliver all of these through best of self-service analytics. So thinking about all that, given the sheer volume and variety of HHS-related data, it's imperative that we ease the job of this data exploration, which you've spoken about, and the visualization. And this is exactly where unified analytics comes into play. This component brings in the power of data and unified analytics to anyone within an organization. Very important, any single person within an organization. And this is the key to empowering everyone to be a data geek, allowing them to see the information how they want it, where they want it, and when they want it. This also allows the HHS agencies to tell their story in a manner that is of value to them and ultimately the citizens that they are serving. This provides the ability to quickly navigate from hypothesis to analytics to insights and actions through meaningful dashboards and visualizations. Let's take an example. The visualization in the platform built in Knowi can quickly detect the correct data attributes from the NoSQL, the unstructured NoSQL storage, without any requirement for ETL. And this is really important because it means there's no data flattening, no data manipulation, no data movement, and certainly no need to rebuild relational tables. Instead, we're able to deliver various descriptive and diagnostic reports on the fly. You get to leverage all of the benefits of a high-performance NoSQL platform, which is exactly what Anthony was speaking about, without having to learn a new query language or even being forced to pull the data out for restructuring before being able to make use of any of the data. So just like you did, let's use COVID risk reports as an example. So the story, as we talk about, so the dashboards, the visualizations, the story as such, might include comorbidity-related risk like high blood sugar, hypertension, asthmatics who had a large amount of visits to the ER, SDOH risk factors, including access to healthy food, to housing, community support, and population studies showing the geoconcentration of high-risk groups and their distance from the nearest care facilities or testing centers. All of this valuable information can be easily consumed by health professionals across the care continuum. But furthermore, people within the agencies can simply ask questions of their data using search-based analytics. And the industry quite often refers to this as natural language processing, or NLP. This empowers any user, just like I said before, anyone, so any user to simply ask a Google-like question with results being returned instantly in text or visual formats. And with built-in alerts, notifications, and even workflow, all these reports can be easily shared and managed among various stakeholders. And lastly, HHS agencies can still maintain their preference for private or public cloud deployments. Back to you, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. That's great. And again, we're still continuing to build the story of how to address these challenges that the agencies have in building a better analytics capability. I would imagine that somewhere along the way, we're going to talk about cloud. Certainly, you need to be able to scale these solutions. We've already talked about how quickly data is replicating and how much we have at our fingertips. How I would imagine that cloud comes into play in helping agencies scale the way they use these systems. But why don't we ask Jignesh to weigh in here on the role for cloud in building these capabilities?
Thanks, Patrick. So in my mind, right, there are two aspects to the cloud. Any platform or agencies that become insight-driven and build programs to better serve their constituents would need to be secure, reliable, scalable, accessible, and finally, performance-oriented. And the most important part of the entire platform is how easy and quick you can deploy the solution, and that's what cloud brings to the table. The other thing is AWS Cloud can help agencies is to automate an AI platform within minutes and infrastructure with a massive scale. They can also, extend such platforms to solve various time-sensitive challenges like, contact tracing or providing 360-degree view of people across geographic region, which is kind of a need of the hour today. Cloud can also enable the platform to fully, provide fine-grained access to security in the cloud, which is kind of really important for PII and PHI information for all health and human and other government agencies. If I take an example of that, AWS Cloud native security controls are used by over 1 million active customers, and CIA is one of our customers. They are the one with the most stringent requirement. The second aspect of the cloud, which is widely underutilized and ignored by the customer, is using of managed services related data orchestration and security. What brings to table is, you get to use most of the managed services of AWS. Now, if I bring it all together, when agencies build an AI and automated platform, both of these can put their data to work. This slide shows high-level flow of a platform that Dr. Suman, Anthony, and Ryan, all they discussed. And it's multi-source, multi-format data ingestion, which can provide aggregation and analysis and generation of intelligence, as you can see. The services that I just discussed can make this entire process more efficient and effective faster. So for example, if you look at in the data ingestion piece, we are using S3, which is acting as a common landing zone and for all data feeds and pass-through for data processing. We are also using Athena as a managed service to use and create a real-time exploratory data analysis of warehouse in the platform, which can quickly tell you whether the data is validated or not. Finally, we are using EC2 for data orchestration engine, which can accelerate the data harmonization journey from bronze, silver, and finally to the golden stage. Overall, if you look at the architecture, the cloud agencies can operationalize their automated AI platform faster by 50%. Patrick.
No, thanks, Jignesh. That's great. We've talked about the COVID use case, and it appears that if the agencies are beginning to use this automated AI platform, they create a golden record, they create some unifying way of governing their data, then it appears to me it could be used beyond COVID as well. But Dr. Suman, why don't you weigh in on the other use possibilities for the approach that we're talking about today?
Absolutely, Patrick, and that's what I think the slide that is currently projected mentions about. So, a platform like this doesn't necessarily restrict you on the use cases. So it's all about the underlying data that you can bring in and that you can start working on. So what it says is a platform like this is multifaceted. So it doesn't necessarily restrict you only for COVID or only for a specific type of use cases that you want to do. So it helps you to consolidate all your use cases together, and you can bring it up in different business situation as per your requirement. And that's eventually true, because once the golden record that we are talking about is created and stored in the platform, this extension is possible in minutes. Right from your mental health to your substance abuse to social determinants of health to general population health, whatever you want. So there is no limitation to the use cases that you can actually work out on this. And you don't need multiple different tools to do multiple different jobs. So when the agencies have all this right data elements aggregated, sanitized, bring into the platform, the only thing that they have to do in order to make it more dimensional is to switch on the out-of-the-box machine learning models from the available libraries to get answers to any of the above related problem statements. And that's easy to do when you have an automated engine that can help you to create these models on the fly. Just drag and drop the required data you want to use. Add the pre-built algorithm that would immediately take up the data, process the information, and give you the insights that you want to generate. And that's what we have been doing on the ground as well. I cannot name exactly the client, but there are a few states who are exploring right now this platform for their enhanced contract tracing analytics, because contract tracing just to do on an app-based or even on a physical basis it's an incomplete story. You need to have more intelligence in order to take actions appropriately. Similarly, if I talk completely on a different dimension, another client of us, a state agency, is discussing with us that how the same platform can be applicable to solve some of their challenges related to child welfare program. So think about the versatility of this particular platform that it can bring in. It's all about getting in the right data. The rest of the things can be easily navigated through it. I hope it answers the question, Patrick.
No, absolutely. And as we've mentioned so many times already, the data is growing so quickly. Government is going to need to use it in a more effective way to make the right decisions in the future, and always has needed to. But I think we're seeing more and more the capabilities that make it easier to process and necessary to process because there is so much of it. We're gonna shift here in a moment to our audience Q&A. I'd like to remind everybody that if you have questions, by all means submit them. We've had a couple trickle in during the course of the presentation, but we'd love to get some more. But before we get to that, let's get our panelists to share their thoughts on how this space is going to continue to evolve. And Dr. Suman, let's just start that off with you.
It seems that I'm the only guy that I have to take it up,
yeah.
But I'll welcome Ryan, Jignesh, and Anthony to pour in more of their thoughts. So, this particular slide that I have put together is very close to my heart, and I definitely think that how we are transforming every day. We started with something with a concept of business intelligence, decades away. Now with the advancement of data science, how things have transformed, how new breakthroughs have been made, that we got into the next level of artificial intelligence. And it's not far when you have to think that a computer system will eventually mimic the human brain function and make it more like a cognitive way of operating things. So, honestly, putting things together again, AI-driven data technologies are much easier to use, but they again require some foundational elements to be in place before organization can reap on the benefit. With the scarcity of data science talents, challenges with data literacy, data, getting the right data, sanitized data, data being locked in places, non-interoperable solution, it's important for agencies to move beyond their traditional multi-tool approach and adopt a one-stop, next-generation AI-driven solution that can scale their complex data analytics projects seamlessly across the organization through an AI-driven operating model and ensure uniform data experience. That's very important. I mean, not only just to generate the insight, you have to have the right understanding of the insights, and that's where the uniform data experience is so crucial in today's world. And that will eventually help you to deliver better and faster outcomes today and even tomorrow. Ryan, your thoughts, or Anthony, please feel free to chime in.
Yeah, happy to, Suman. Thank you for that. I'll end up with this thought. So from my perspective, it's really wonderful to know that we actually have so much data available to us. More importantly, so much valuable data. And with a world filled with imaginative people, I think we're going to see the evolution of visualizations, animation, and bringing alive interactive dashboards that will enable people to collaborate well beyond just static data, but now with insights, with visions and algorithms, essentially, as I said before, stories that need to be told. What about you, Anthony?
Well, Ryan, I agree, and I'm excited about these capabilities we can bring to the agencies. In addition to solving data problems for a particular agency like we've discussed, and unlocking and extending that data for multiple agencies to consume and leverage, so you don't have one data platform for one app, but you're now getting leverage from the same data platform. These operational pieces are understood. From my perspective, what's even more exciting is how do you deploy that data at the edge, at the device level for a constituent amongst these agencies, for the population. And whether they're connected, they're online, they're offline, the application needs to work. The data that is relevant to them needs to be served and synchronized in a push-pull capability. And embedding those machine learning and AI libraries at the edge is where the industry is going. We've got 5G, we've got a decentralized cloud, and these topics are all achievable with the capabilities of this platform. Jignesh, what are your thoughts?
Thanks. I feel what cloud helpful is, it brings all the right information with all the major components and providing better services to the constituents. With the access to a complete citizen profile, health and human services agencies can do recommendation, public assistance program, and including medicines and benefit and whatnot. Cloud also brings helpful insight into the security of that data. And that would be really beneficial based on the prior services that individuals have received, because you can completely trace what they have received and what they're going to receive in future. As my friends just mentioned, the pace at which this data and the AI technologies are evolving, it's staggering. And only AWS Cloud can support the demands these would put on storage, processing, and dissemination of insights. Patrick?
No,
yeah, so
thanks.
I think
I was just going to say, Dr. Suman, why don't you wrap up this piece here, and then we'll move into the Q&A.
Sure, Patrick. I think I'm really a bad guy. I try to hijack things. So let me put my final thoughts over here. So it's my strong belief that we are in the golden age of data science technology. and that is leading to more breakthroughs in AI. And if you see, business leaders are not far from embracing the power of more advanced cognitive intelligence that will actually enable real-time digital decisioning. That's really not far when, we can see, how a decision can be made right from the system rather than we thinking through it. Such autonomous intelligence will lead to predicting the unpredictable. And I say that it can improve the perfect as well and help you to understand the inscrutable, measure the unmeasurables. And all of this can really happen when the underlying data technology will become more creative, resilient, scalable, fault-tolerant, and able to handle errors automatically so that insights can still be produced with incomplete and challenging data set. And actually, you know what, Patrick? With all my friends together in this panel, we are actually taking things off the ground. We are constantly innovating with our partners in developing the Health Insights platform that can readily address all the challenges that we have discussed and bring all the privileges that any agencies would like to embrace on their data analytics project and make a real transformation and a big lift. I think that's pretty much from my side, Patrick. Over to you.
Well, thank you, and I think that's exciting. And I know our audience appreciates the breadth of perspective that's sitting here on this panel. It's not often that we have so many different partners involved, and it's great to get everybody's view of how the technologies are all working together to produce these capabilities. I think at this point we're going to turn into our Q&A. We've got some time left to address some of the questions that have been coming in with the audience, or coming in from the audience rather, and we appreciate that. So I think maybe let's spend a minute talking about agencies and their ability to implement, where they are in their journey, if you will, towards greater maturity of data analytics, the use of artificial intelligence, the use of capabilities in the marketplace to produce better outcomes using data, and analyzing all of this data. So we talked about AI, but wouldn't an automated AI analytics type of platform be pretty complex for agencies that are not far along in their analytics maturity journey? I mean, I know we've talked about this very platform being able to help address some of the gaps that the agencies have, but some might argue that this still sounds pretty complex. Dr. Suman, you're not hijacking anything. Let's start with you and go from there.
Sure, I think that's a very good question, and I appreciate whoever has put it in the Q&A box. Absolutely, there are different levels of analytics maturity within different organizations, in fact, in departments of an agency. So it should not be something like people have to adopt a big bang approach. A platform like this need not be necessarily to be deployed whole thing at a time. So this type of solutions are more developed on a Lego-based architecture. They are much more modular in construct. So based on how far you are on your analytics journey, how far you have matured, where you are, if you want to solve your data integration challenges, you can choose a component that can help you to do that particular piece of work before it can help you to transition to the next level of taking that AI-driven model creations and unified visualization and all these things. So, what I would like to say is, a platform like this actually goes along with your evolution journey. It necessarily doesn't mean that once you adopt it, you don't know what to exactly do. You should not stand clueless. So there are ways that it can be componentized, and such platform works perfectly fine based on your specific need along your analytics maturity. Anthony, Jignesh, or Ryan, if you want to share your thoughts here.
Dr. Schuman, I'll just add from, and I think Ryan did a nice job summarizing earlier, the ability to provide tools and capabilities that DBAs and users and data scientists are used to. Going back to the SQL standard, how do you provide shape to data that is fundamentally fluid, like JSON documents, and providing the capabilities that are understood and utilized in the enterprise and in these agencies today, and apply them to get insights from the platform, I think is really going to facilitate the deployment and success of these projects.
Yeah, I'll add
one
more piece to that if I can. One of the things that we've kept front and foremost in bringing these 4 organizations together to develop this platform for the HHS agencies is in creating a very valuable platform to address issues that we've seen in the past, that we've just been hit with the pandemic today, and to hopefully prepare for how we handle this with all this valuable data that we have as we move forward. And most importantly behind that is keeping it in a manner that truly anyone simply within an organization can help make these important or critical and timely decisions in a simple manner. Asking the questions, using technology that's easy to use without, and enabling them essentially, Suman uses the term constantly, enabling anyone to be this concept of a data geek. Back to you, Patrick.
Yeah, so maybe play off that idea of anybody being able to become a data geek. And one of the questions that just came in from the audience is how far along, they're playing on this theme of how to get started. And the question is, how far have the government agencies come in being capable of having a data-centric approach in their enterprise systems? And I think I'll probably erroneously add a little interpretation to this. It seems that you have to have some leadership that's going to drive the data-centric approach. What are you all seeing in the agencies that you're working with, and how they're approaching these capabilities and the need for the culture of an agency to move towards the ability to use data better?
So I think let me go first. Yeah,
there we go.
I found the question exciting enough, so just took it off my own. This is a very smart question, and I actually like to say that AI is primarily underutilized across agencies, and most of the effort or the work that has been done in the data analytics projects, they are much more manual driven, still based on a legacy technology, very disjointed. There are a lot of friction points that is existing. People have to learn multiple tools. People have to know about, how this tool will interact with the other, whether there will be the right semblance of their interpretation or not. So, so most of the solutions that is currently in the market, they have a very pinpointed approach to make, some sort of problem-solving attitude. Whereas, a technology or a platform like this, which is holistic, which is end-to-end, brings in this automation that, you can easily work with any type of data without even having that challenges to manage it, interpret it. And, then it can scale up to take you to the level of automatically deploying and building models on the fly and give you out the projected next best actions, which can be shared with your stakeholders for a better decision making. So I think, there are a lot of problem that is existing with the organization with respect to how they are approaching the data analytics project. And a solution like this can probably a good effort to look into and adopt.
It makes a lot of sense, and I think that you're going to see a lot more folks, a lot more leaders exploring these types of options. Well, I want to be respectful of our time commitment today, and there are a few more questions coming in, but I think we're going to need to wrap it up. In closing, I'd just like to thank Dr. Suman Dey, Jignesh Desai, Anthony Farina, and Ryan Levy for sharing their insights on today's webcast. And I also want to thank our sponsors, Infosys, AWS, Couchbase, and Knowi, for making it possible to have this webcast. Thanks to all the audience for taking the time to spend with us. We appreciate your questions. We appreciate your engagement. We look forward to seeing you again soon at another government technology event. Have a great rest of your day.